Hello, my name is Katie McIntyre, and I'm your host for the Loving Cup Elevate Your Gratitude podcast. Today is Tuesday, December 19th, and I'm here live in the FingerLakes1.com studios, and welcome. So I wanted to start out with just a quote, and we're going to jump right into our guest today. So Albert Schweitzer says, "At times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us." And with that, I would like to welcome my guests today, Angela Daddabbo and Carey Eidel.
Thanks, Katie.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
So what I like to do to start off the podcast is have each of you introduce the other. So Carey, would you introduce us all to Angela?
Sure. I would like to introduce the artistic director, the founding member of Auburn Public Theater, Angela Daddabbo. Angela has been many things in her career: a film producer in Los Angeles and a teacher in Japan, and a community steward and activist, and involved in a multitude of very important issues to all of us in Central New York and to our country. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Angela.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's lovely.
Okay.
I'd like to meet that girl.
Sure.
And so Angela, why don't you introduce us to Carey?
Of course. So this is Carey Eidel, Executive Director of Auburn Public Theater. As you know, Carey is an actor, an acting teacher, a comedian, professional comedian. He is the Executive Director of Auburn Public Theater. When Auburn Public Theater first started, a couple of years into its ascent, we had to have a business person who knew how to speak to other business people. And gratefully, Carey rose to the challenge of joining us as that business person. And as somebody on our board once said about Carey, the only reason he's not running a Fortune 500 company is because he doesn't want to. So Carey has that kind of business.
That's a much better introduction than mine.
You think so? Well, that's why I went second.
Can we start over?
So Carey has tremendous business acumen, which is really why we're still in business after all these many years.
And how many years has it been?
14 and 12 in the building. On December 7th, we just had our 12th anniversary.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that leads me very naturally into the next thing I wanted to share, which really is that I'm grateful for the two of you. So,
thank you, Katie.
I was relocated to Auburn, to Central New York in 2005, and you're two of the first people that I met, and you really helped me get involved with the community and to start doing service work. And I joined the board at APT, and just it's been a really special place for me and for memories, but also just to see all that's happened in the last 14 years. I mean, so kudos to you.
Quite a journey.
I want to hear more about that too. So would you, in the context of Auburn Public Theater, just think about what you're grateful for as the leaders of Auburn Public Theater?
You want to go first?
Well, usually bad cleanup, and there's a reason for that. I like to say if we were the Beatles, Angela would be the John Lennon. She's really the heart of that. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm Ringo. I'm not sure. I might be Pete Best. I'm not sure. Anyway, gosh. Boy, there's so many things that to be grateful for, and it's very difficult to begin. As you grow older, you start to think about mortality. You start to think about the things that are important. Start to think about the things that you're leaving behind, both for your family and for the community. And I guess specifically with Auburn Public Theater, I'm grateful for the opportunity, because I've had a few different careers. I've been in the entertainment business doing many things for many years, and then I kind of took a sideline with Angela into the restaurant business. And this is by far the best thing that I've ever done. I know that as a labor of love, which a nonprofit arts center in upstate New York must be, we are leaving a community better than we found it. We're giving opportunities in many different areas to young people and to people who are re-entering the workforce and who might be a little bit disenfranchised, who are coming back. It's allowed me to build real, solid friendships with like-minded people, and knowing that we need to be where we are, because a lot of people in the community they're challenged economically, socially, and they don't necessarily think of arts and culture as part of a fabric that will enhance their lives. We're taught, sports, and obviously there's religion and community events, and Auburn happens to be a very generous community. But it's the arts and culture which creates more texture, and which allows for a greater community of enlightened people. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to do that, and that's what I will take into my later years. Not that I'm retiring today, but yeah, but that's what I'll remember.
Beautiful.
And I would say that I've had a very blessed life. I was born and raised in Auburn. Then I went to the Boston area for college. I did a semester in London during my junior year, and then after that I moved to Tokyo, where I taught English for 3 years. And then I followed a relationship to Los Angeles, where I worked in the entertainment business for 9 years, and then we moved home and moved here back to Auburn in 2001. In all those places that I lived, wonderful, amazing, incredible cities, I never could really my mother bought a sweatshirt once that she sent to me somewhere that I was living, that I thought came out of Melina Carnicelli's City Hall, and it was a sweatshirt with a tree on it, and the words said, "Bloom where you are planted." It's part of a quote. And it was such an impactful thing for me when I received this gift. And when I got back, a couple people have asked me, of all the places you lived, what's your favorite place so far? And I would say it's Auburn the second time. Because I feel, just as Carey was saying, that I finally have been given the opportunity, or found the opportunity, to bloom where I'm planted.
Sure.
While all of those communities had so much to offer, I never felt like I could become part of the fabric of them. But here, if we have a comedy show, 3 days later I'll be at Wegmans, and somebody will track me down to recount a joke that the comedian has told, and to share that, to re-experience that moment. And that, to me, is the magic of it. To really, really have a deep sense of belonging and blooming where I'm planted.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're helping people make memories all the time.
And ourselves. It's so, so, so great. I just put something up on Facebook. It was just a sort of look back for the theater's 12th birthday. And I didn't look at my photographs. I actually just Googled Auburn Public Theater and then just hit, images, because I didn't, I look at my photographs and I have, emotional connection. I just wanted to see what was out there. And, oh my God, we never do that. I never take time to do this kind of exercise. And as I got on Google to see what was out there, it was just, I don't know if you saw the post or not, but it was, I only wanted to put 12 photographs up. And it was like, which 12 of the 100 unbelievable, meaningful, at this exact moment in time should I choose from? And that's when it really hits you, like, oh my God, what a treasured life we've been living. We've been living. So...
Yeah, and I'm sure, the department store folks never dreamed of what would be in their space so many years later, but it's much better than a department store.
That's true. And I'd say that, something that kind of came upon us after we started was that our society was changed by the internet and social media and, the content delivery systems of Netflix and Amazon and others. So the live experience is endangered unless you're going to go to see Hamilton and pay $1,500 ticket, or go see someone famous in an auditorium, which is great. It's wonderful. The smaller live events that bring community together in the arts, I think, became endangered. I think for people to have that live experience where they can exchange ideas and share something in person, I think we need to preserve that. It wasn't our mission when we started necessarily, but I think that adaptability, obviously in today's world, is key. We need to find our relevance now in this new world, and I see it in that live experience with others.
Auburn Live.
Auburn Live. Then you can exchange your opinions, and there's a certain responsibility when you're face-to-face with someone rather than when you're kind of sitting home alone, and you can kind of just shoot something out, and it's anonymous or close to it, in that you're insulated.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to kind of have responsibility, and you have to use your skills to engage in what we like to see as, a lively dialogue.
We have a friend who comes to the comedy shows, and he's got the most incredible laugh of anybody I've ever heard. Bob Lina, that's you. And so I always
know that laugh.
Do you know his laugh? And I always say, Bob, will you please come to the comedy show tonight, and can I sit next to you? Because really, I enjoy the sound of his laugh as much or more than any joke that any comedian has ever told. I mean, he's got such a fabulous laugh. So watching that comedian at home without Bob Lina sitting next to me enjoying the same joke is not the same experience. So.
Yeah, I actually.
That could be a fundraiser for Auburn
There
Public
you go.
Theater. I mean, we could auction off Bob Lina as
I
your
seatmate.
I know.
Exactly.
I actually usually have Bob with me during the day all the time. It's a little uncomfortable in the morning, but his laughter is just keeps me going.
Yeah.
Not so good at funerals, but other than that, he's terrific.
All right, so I didn't think you were going to make me laugh so much.
No, it's all right.
Before today, did you think about gratitude much?
I think about it every day. As a matter of fact, a dear friend once told me, and I believe Angela, about a site called gratefulness.org. And I signed up for that because every day, the first thing I read on my phone is a quote, a philosophical or spiritual quote about gratefulness. And it starts me off in the right way. And I kind of make a plan on what I would like to do during the day, and it usually involves doing something nice for someone and making someone laugh, because I like to do that. And that's the way I like to express my gratitude, is by making it better during the day while I'm here. I mean, this is the day we have. So starting off with that gratefulness, and again, going back to what I said, as I got older, I mean, I wish I'd done it a little bit more when I was younger, but as I get older, it becomes more and more important to do that, and more satisfying in a way.
And I have a daily gratitude practice as well. Somebody, 5 or 6 years ago, told me about what they did, and that was they got a very tiny little notebook, one of those really kind of the smallest one you can find, but it's still a notebook, and they wrote down 10 things they were grateful for every morning from the day before. So it's like a brain gym and a gratitude journal, like what did I do yesterday? And the idea is that it's so small, so it only takes 30 seconds, like just a few, so you can you can commit to doing it.
Sure.
Like you don't have to overlook it because you have so many other things to do. And I really found that, and this person was just a really well-adjusted person. It's that thing, if you want what they have, you have to do what they do. So I thought, all right, I'll go out and get myself one of these notebooks. And I almost never look back. It doesn't matter. Every once in a while, I'll find one in a drawer, and I'll think, what was I grateful for in 2012 or whatever. So I've been doing that pretty much religiously every day for many, many years. And I've just started with my son about a year or two ago, asking him to name 3 things he's grateful for from the day before he goes to sleep. And that's like a comedy show. I mean, he always says the funniest things, like I caught a pass at recess and I'm grateful for that, and he's always grateful for the dog, he's always grateful for his good health. It is such a departure from how I prayed as a child. I had a very different spiritual sort of religious orientation, and my prayers were always just fearful, and I was always asking for stuff, and I was grasping, and I was asking for protection and for things to happen, and it was just so willful. My prayer life was so willful. And so this just feels so much better. And it's alchemical. On the days, there have been days when I've skipped it, and by like the middle of the morning, I can feel myself feeling a little squirrely, and I think, what's the squirrely feeling from? I think, I missed my gratitude journal, darn it. It's that great Willie Nelson line, I think. When I started counting my blessings, my whole life turned around, and I think that's a mouthful.
It's true, though.
Yeah, so true.
So I may take your gratitude journal idea. We do a gratitude jar at our house, and it's a family thing, and we have, all of the jars from the years that we've been doing it.
Wonderful.
But we write down what things we're grateful for through the whole year, and then we dump them all out and read them and laugh and cry and
I love that.
Remember
I'm going to
stuff.
take that. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Okay, we'll exchange.
Yeah, we'll switch.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So, is there something, if you think back to your life, that at the time you were not grateful for at all, but looking back, you're now grateful for it? Something that wasn't so good at the time, but turned out to be kind of a blessing in disguise?
Related to the theater or just in general?
Either way, whatever you want to answer it.
I have something related to the theater, and that is, when we started, this vision that we have for the theater, I feel like we had it in its complete form from day one. And so we were kind of way ahead of ourselves in terms of wanting funders to give us the money to do it. Sort of like 2-year-olds in a way, sort of emotional 2-year-olds. Like, we know, we see it, we have the image of what it can do for downtown.
Come on.
No, just write the check, right? And somebody said to us, we have the capacity to write you a check for $1 million, but we would never do that to you. We were about a year or two old at the time, because it would devastate you. And I remember thinking, I would never use this word, devastate. I wouldn't be devastated to have $1 million carry out this mission. Looking back on it, it is one of the wisest things. And I'm so grateful to that person for articulating it to me at the time, because we really needed. There's a great line, I don't know, it's an Al Pacino, Robert De Niro movie where they play like a cop and a robber. They're 2 cops or whatever. Anyway, Al Pacino's talking about his wife, a girlfriend, who's always trying to get him to share about his line of work as this cop in this dangerous neighborhood. And he says to her something like, you're always trying to help me lose my edge, but I use my edge. I need my edge. I don't want to get rid of my edge. They're like at a restaurant, so it's like a tight, 2-shot. And I think that over the last 10 years that we've been endeavoring to do what we're doing, that edge, as much as I didn't want it, is really what has driven us to be sustainable. Because I think when you're on the edge financially, you have to be really sharp. The margin for error is almost non-existent. And so you get to be, Michael Phelps' coach, I heard him give an interview once about how when he started training with Michael Phelps, every chance he got, he did something to thwart him. Like he would step on his best goggles right before the gun went off, or he would tell the limousine to come to the hotel late. These sort of things on purpose. And when somebody asked him, like, why did you do that? Obviously, Michael Phelps didn't know he was doing that. He said, because anybody can do their best time when everything's perfect.
Right.
You have to be able to do your best time when everything's going wrong if you want to be a champion. So I'm not, there's no grandiosity here. I'm not saying we're the Michael Phelps of the non-for-profit world, but it's similar. It's like to not get that check when we felt we wanted it and we needed it and we knew what to do with it was probably really great. So.
Yeah. I think the movie was Heat.
That's it. Al Pacino.
Just in case the viewers are like, I gotta Google that.
What was that movie? Heat.
Thank you. Yeah. What am I grateful for? Well, I would say
that went wrong. Sorry.
Oh wow, what a list.
What do I say first?
I'm just doing it in my head. Carry the 4. That sucked. No. Yeah, I should have done that. No, I think I think that I don't know whether this answers the question or not, but
that's okay.
I would say that it was my health. I think that when I go back over things, I think I've had some history, both as a child and then and as an adult, that really at this point in my life has made me very grateful for waking up every day with energy and enthusiasm. And it's not only physical health, it's emotional and mental health. I think about that a lot, and I'm very grateful for it now, when as a younger person I don't think I was. I don't think I even thought about it. And I don't know if you're supposed to think about it. It depends on what your philosophy of life is, but it's like I love to see my kids just be kids for a while, because I think we tend to take away their childhood very early with a lot of goals and requirements, and then that there's a certain maybe time in your youth when you should just do whatever you want for a while and see what happens, and I just think it's an evolution. But I'm at the point now where I look back and I say, wow, I am grateful for every day. And when I see people I know and even people I don't know who are struggling or with health issues, either for themselves or their family, it just reinforces, and I really understand that becomes your first priority. So I'm more grateful for it now. Yeah.
That's good. Stay healthy for me. So, can you tell me about how you guys met?
Oh, yeah. Can you swear on a podcast?
Sure.
Okay. You want me to tell
Is this cable?
Or you want to tell
It's
it?
not
See how old I am?
It's not cable.
Is this cable?
So I had a hairdresser when I was living in LA who was, I'll just say this, she gave me the Jennifer Aniston haircut before Jennifer Aniston had it. Amazing. And I got stopped on Sunset Boulevard once. Expensive car pulls over. Where'd you get your haircut? Like this kind of a hairdresser.
Was it Jennifer Aniston?
No.
Okay.
Didn't
that
have
would
it yet.
be really cool.
No, but I don't know. Maybe somebody told her hairdresser, like they saw me and they said, like, this is incredible hairdresser. So you know that the hairdresser is also part therapist, part shaman, part best friend, part whatever. And this woman, Stella, was from a big Mexican-American family. She was originally from New Mexico. And she had decided to leave LA to go back to New Mexico to join together with her extended family. This was like a funeral without a corpse. And she was throwing herself a going-away party. And
by the way, at that time, it was voluntary.
Yeah, that's right.
Just
She
saying.
wasn't going back to Mexico. She was going back to New Mexico.
New Mexico.
New Mexico.
At that time, it was voluntary.
So she threw herself this little party, and she was really deeply into the music scene in LA, and she knew all these incredible musicians, and she had a good friend who was going to offer his patio of his house, because we were like kind of youngsters, and people didn't own houses. Everyone lived in apartments, but it was way out in the valley. It's like New Jersey to New York, or just not...
It's another world.
It's another world, not a desirable location to go to, but I could not go say goodbye to Stella. And she had this little 3-piece band on the patio that were just killing it. They were amazing. And of course, it was LA, like land of the posers, right? So everyone's all seated around the periphery of the patio, like trying to be all cool cats. And I was like, no, screw this. My hairdresser's leaving. And this is an incredible 3-piece band. I'm going to dance by myself. And I tripped and I fell hard onto the cement.
Oh.
And Carey was one of the posers sitting on the sidelines. And he said immediately... Because, all of a sudden, like, girl down on the patio concrete. And Carey says, really quickly, because he's quick like that, did anybody else feel that aftershock?
Well, they have earthquakes.
They have earthquakes in L.A. And then now, not only was everybody staring at me, which they were, because I felt now everyone's staring at me and laughing, like at Carey, but sort of at me. And the first thing I thought was, what an asshole. That's how we met. Do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I think that your instincts have always been good.
Always go with your first answer. Is that what they teach you?
Yes, you have to go with your first answer. But it just came out because that's who I was. And actually, to your credit, you had a wonderful sense of humor. And then I said, "Oh, come over here and talk." And because I did mean it just in fun, and you did. And then I've not been able to get rid of you since, and that's my fault.
But your fault. You could have had a cleaner boundary.
Yes, that's true. But you were a good dancer, and
thank you. And you've never said that before.
Well, you know what? There's
what you learn on a podcast.
I know, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. We met, and we had a real connection, and we started on our journey together. And that's what brought us back to Auburn, because Angela grew up there, and we had our first child, our daughter, who is now a senior in high school, and so we felt it was time to make a change based on where we were in our lives at that point after a few years, and the rest is not that interesting, but it's history. It's history too.
That's good. So can you each tell me what you're most grateful for about the other person?
Most grateful for about the other person.
You know what? I know that this is going to sound really stupid because I'm gonna quote a movie.
Oh, okay.
But and I don't know why I go back to that. I just loved it when he said this. But when Jack Nicholson said to Helen Hunt. Right? Something about "you make me a better man," or did she say that? Or did he say that to? Now I can't remember, but it doesn't matter because that's
as good as it gets, right?
As good as it gets.
So they filmed that outside of my apartment in Brooklyn, right down the street. Yeah,
excellent,
Kismet,
excellent. Yeah. So I just think that in a general sense, there's so many things. We've been together for so many years. I know this is going to sound odd, but we are no longer married. But we are best friends. We are great partners. We're great parents together. We run the theater together. And so obviously I'm grateful for all of that. But Angela has a certain, she has standards, moral and ethical standards that have really guided me and helped me to be a better person. Because, I think left to my own devices, I think that I would probably not be as productive a citizen, as good a father, as good an administrator. I might be funnier, but but that you have to give up stuff.
You're not hitting on me, are you?
No, you're all the way over there.
Just
No,
checking.
that's not right.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carey. That's lovely.
You're welcome.
The thing I'm most grateful for about Carey, as I'm sitting here listening to your lovely answer, I think is that you are someone who, from that first moment when he made the joke, but then there was an empty seat next to him, the only empty seat on the patio, and he said something like, "You, come over here and sit down," which, if you know me, like that's not the usual pickup line that works with me.
Right.
And that's not Carey at all, but he did it and I did it, and then we had this great conversation.
I was in a very desperate place at the time. And and it is in a way true. I didn't want to go to that party. My friend invited me, and I was sitting outside. And I'd been in LA for a long time. Actors, unless you're super duper famous. I mean, I was successful, but I wasn't famous. They're not the greatest catches. And as you get up and I kind of just gave up. I in a way, which is great, isn't it? It's like letting go, and then look what happened. And I think I had to get to that place, although I didn't know it at the time.
Awesome.
So thank you. That's lovely. And let me. I just want to add to my answer that, and I just thought about this as you were talking. One time I was outside of a 7-Eleven in LA with Carey's dad. Carey had run in to get something, and when you came out, there was a homeless person there, and you put some, as you always do. I mean, you put like dollars. Like you didn't just throw your change. You like opened your wallet and put dollars in. And Carey's father, who born, raised, worked professionally in New York City his whole life, said, "Wow, look at what Carey's doing. He's giving money to the homeless guy." And I said, "Oh, he always does that." And he said, "Oh, that's amazing. I've never done that." Carey's dad was a mensch. I mean, a totally wonderful, wonderful guy.
And even when I was homeless, he didn't give me money.
That's true. Yeah.
So did you grow up in New York City?
I grew up around New York City, yeah, around the area. And then after college, moved back to New York City for a school after that, and then stayed there for a while, and then moved to LA. And then Auburn. It's a natural progression.
Yeah.
It is.
Your generous spirit. See that?
Yeah, it is.
Your generous spirit. That's the thing I'm most grateful for.
Well, yeah, okay. Thank you.
So, I talked a little bit about the gratitude jar, and we talked about some gratitude practices. Do you have something, like it's Christmas next week, and so is there something that you do in your house that you celebrate gratitude, or you share that with your family?
Well, first of all, let me say Angela and I were raised with different faiths. And so I was raised Jewish and Angela was raised Catholic. Neither of us practice it. I don't even rehearse. But because because Judaism is as much a culture as it is a religion, and so I don't want to be accused of finishing Hitler's work, as my relatives like to say. But I like to keep the traditions alive as much as I can, so our children know where they come from. So the ritual of the candle lighting, and just kind of retelling the story of how it came about, is something that brings us together, and Angela participates as I participate in her ritual, and I think it brings us closer together. And I think there's almost an unspoken gratitude about it. I think Angela also makes a practice of every time we sit down for a meal, whether she does it without me or with me, she does a prayer where we give thanks for this, not only this food, but this time together to enjoy it. So it goes on a regular basis, and it continues with the holidays.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So, one thing that I was going to ask you about is if you can think of your favorite memory of the last 14 years at APT. Is there one highlight that was just like knock it out of the park? But if not, it could be several just highlights. If you had to kind of pin them on a timeline, are there things that jump out?
I always go back to one of the very first things that ever happened. I think you were present for it. I had a friend who was with the Royal Shakespeare Company, Scottish guy. I taught with him in Tokyo, and he came over for one of his first visits to the United States. And we had a friend who worked for Comedy Central, so I said, let's meet in the city and try to get on the Jon Stewart show, which was kind of relatively new at the time. And we did. We got on the Jon Stewart show. And the warm-up comedian is a guy called Paul Mercurio, as you know.
I like Paul Mercurio.
Love Paul Mercurio.
Funny guy.
And we were there for the 90-minute warm-up session that this guy had to do, in the middle of the afternoon. I mean, this thing tapes at like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, so you have to be there at like 4:30, and this poor guy has to get like 250 people engaged. He has to be funny, but not as funny as Jon Stewart. Like, it's a very tricky job, right? And he was so brilliant in the way he managed the audience that day. It was symphonic. He picked on my friend, John, and me, so I knew it was real. But the way he pulled it all together at the very end, had I not been involved, you would never have been able to convince me that it wasn't scripted. So I did something I had, in 9 years in LA, I had never done. I had never gone up to a celebrity to ask for a photograph or an autograph, none of that stuff. But I wrote Paul a fan email. Like, I love Jon Stewart, he's so great. Now I love him even more because he's obviously confident enough to have a guy like you be his warm-up. And he wrote back, hey, what do you do? What's your line of work? And I said, we have this brand new theater that we're starting. And do you ever do colleges in the area? Do you think there's ever a chance that you could come up and play our little theater? We hadn't even opened yet. So this gig was like September, October, and we didn't open until January. So when I was sitting in that studio audience, I kid you not, on the ticker tape was this idea of, my God, what would it be like to bring this guy to downtown Auburn, to bust the lid off a political situation that had gone on in Auburn before. But that was it. It had just gone around and had gone through my head and out. So Paul did come and perform, and the players involved in that political scene showed up for the second show on Friday night. Asia almost turned them away, our friend Asia Han, and I kind of caught the back of somebody's raincoat out of the corner of my eye, and I went running to hey, let us pull up a chair. And because they were late, that chair got pulled up in the front row. And so Paul discovered that person, who was a former mayor of Auburn, and he just shredded the guy in a very funny way. And I had that recall of, oh my God, I was just in the studio a few months ago thinking, wouldn't it be amazing if Paul could come and say this to this person? And it happened. It was sort of like a carrot, right, that we got to taste, because it was also the easiest, most lucrative show we ever produced. And it's never been that easy ever since. That was the easiest it's ever been. So I think that's, for me, the standout, because it was that, I don't know, it was sort of a nod from the divine that the path was true. That's mine.
That's good. That's good. There are many, many moments in many areas, whether it's behind the scenes or on stage or bringing a performer that I used to follow when and I admire, and now they're right in front of us. Angela, I had followed a wonderful musician named David Wilcox for many, many years, and when I turned 50, as a present, Angela booked him at the theater, and I got to play some. I'm a kind of an amateur composer, not in any professional way, but he asked me to play my songs for him, and it was in the dressing room. It was unbelievable. But I think really as I was thinking about your question, as Angela was speaking as well, there are people who are from Auburn, and they grew up in Auburn. They never left. They may be a little older, maybe in their 50s or 60s. And they are the meat and potatoes of Auburn. And I like to call them the Dunkin' Donuts Change the World crowd, because they sit around either the local cafes or restaurants or Dunkin' Donuts, and they talk about all the ways that they could fix the world and all of this stuff, but they never really come and do anything. They get a second cup of coffee, but and they sometimes get the special, they have the croissant thing. But
it's good for Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, it's good for Dunkin' Donuts, and it gets them active, but they don't necessarily contribute. I don't see them out. And there was one man who was there named Joe, who it might have been through your dad. He was a friend of Angela's dad, who unfortunately had passed away early on in the life of the theater. But Joe came to see a show, and Joe has been back to the theater for almost every show for 12 years, and he spreads the word and he brings people. And I've noticed other people that I've seen around town who all of a sudden are frequenting the theater, and that is a victory. That is being in a place and opening someone's heart and mind, and having them experience something that we've presented, having it make their life better, having them tell other people and bring in a sense of community. And there's a number of those. I mean, I mean, as I'm talking, there's so many different stories. But when I see people who I know are in Auburn who hadn't necessarily made it a part of their lives, just because there wasn't anything, and that gives me great satisfaction.
And you haven't had every citizen of Auburn come through the doors yet, right?
Not yet.
No, my phrase whenever I go on stage is Auburn Public Theater, entertaining Auburnians 3 at a time, because that's what we've done, and it's true. We do an open mic every week, which is one of my favorite events, and it gets the whole community in. It's $2. You can play, you can watch. And I just feel so grateful when they come in and they experience that, and I don't know, that's what gets the local community in, and it just opens the door, and I'm very grateful for that, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was just sitting here and thinking, I got an email very recently with a picture of the both of you for your year-end appeal.
Oh, yes.
So you're looking to raise $10,000,
We
right?
are.
So I was just thinking, there's about 29,000 citizens in Auburn. So what if everyone just put $1 in an envelope and mailed it
That'd be
to
great.
108 Exchange Street in Auburn, New York?
P.O. Box 771.
So
Auburn, New
wouldn't
York,
that be awesome?
That'd be awesome.
13021.
So
Yeah.
would you repeat the address again?
Oh, okay. Well, it's Auburn Public Theater, and we have a P.O. Box. It's P.O. Box 771. It's Auburn, New York, 13021. And you can also go on auburnpublictheater.org, of course, to donate online. And we run a year-end appeal, and we do a lot with a small amount of money. The things that we do are explained on the website, but we focus on 4 areas. The presenting and producing, which we've spoken about, but we also have a cinema, an independent cinema, and we also have a very, very well-developed after-school program for young people between 3 and 6 in the afternoon. We're in 6 local Auburn schools doing arts education, and all of the money that you give goes into these programs. I mean, we're a nonprofit, so and on top of that, with our community partnerships, we also were entrusted by New York State to re-grant $150,000 a year over 5 counties to small arts groups and young artists who are just beginning, and libraries, municipalities in the area. And you can all find that. You can find out information on the site. But we're kind of a supermarket. I mean, Angela's vision was to have multiple spaces under one roof, and we're in a department store, and it's 26,000 square feet, and we're just halfway done too. We've got a whole thing in front of us.
Yeah. No, I love to think back to when we used to enter on the side door, further up towards the garage, and just how things have evolved so much.
And you were involved in one of our first fundraisers, the chili cook-off.
Yes.
It was Katie's idea.
It was your idea, and you and Asia created the chili cook-off, and it was wonderful. Freezing, but wonderful.
Yeah, it was cold.
Yeah, it was.
We didn't focus on the weather.
No.
Well, we raised cold cash.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Folks. Anyway.
So before we close, is there anything else that you want to share that's burning in your heart?
Well, something I've been thinking about through the interview, another quote, one and only Mother Teresa, she says, "The problem with the world is we draw the circle of our family too small." And I think this is another, sentiment that resonates with me. And, your husband, Brian, helped to build the main stage with Janie's McLear's Brian. And there's a picture of you and Brian with your red nose bags behind the bar from the
It's a favorite.
It's a favorite at the theater. And even our current staff, there are some people who've only been there for a couple of years, and I'll say something to them about, 8 years ago when they go, "Angela, we just got here like 6 months ago." It's like I just look at everybody and think we've all been on the ship for the whole duration.
Yeah.
So even if someone's come in to volunteer for a few months, they become part of the Auburn Public Theater family. For us, we don't distinguish between what year, how long, what did they do. It's like everybody's been a part of it. So I would say, what a trip. And so to be here doing this with you, my first podcast ever, makes perfect sense. I mean, it's another great line. We live our lives in circles, and this proves it.
I love it.
Oh, yeah, I have never done a podcast either.
There you
Well,
go.
welcome.
This is great.
Your maiden voyage.
What happens? Does
on
anyone
Auburn
see,
Public Theater
does
Ship.
anyone see this thing? Or
Your
Oh,
mother's
lots
gonna
of
watch
people
it.
are going to
What?
see
Your
it.
mother's going to watch it, probably. I hope.
Yeah, I hope so.
She will.
But
So
she's
before
busy.
we close, can you just share about what you're going to be doing in regards to paninis and wraps and lattes? And
Well, Auburn Public Theater was very fortunate in being in the right place in the right time. A lot of the Regional Economic Development Council grants this year focused on facilities renovation with a slant towards the arts. There was something that was in conjunction with the Empire State Development Corporation and New York State Council on the Arts, which is an organization we deal with a lot. And we took advantage of it by applying for $600,000, and we were successful. The hard work begins now because we have to match it.
sure.
But the goal of the project is to finish the renovation of the building, and it's in two projects. The first is the basement, or I should say the lower level. It was Grant's department store, and the lower level, I think, was the pets
Well, it was a lot of
department. It was a
different-
lot of different things.
It's a cool space, though.
Well,
So cool.
and it is a cool space, and it's 13,000 square feet. It was, the building was the unemployment office of New York State after grants, and then it was a billiard hall and a rent-a-center and a couple of other things. And the downstairs was a nightclub back in the 70s, but no one's been down there in a while. And we started to clean it out. We started to put some different things in the basement to kind of put our toe in the water. But we're going to finish it as a large space for programming. And in a lot of ways, I mean, it would be for the whole community, but for us, we can now book programming that appeals to a younger generation that perhaps likes to stand and maybe is in a little larger venue. It also could be for the community, for catering events and different events. We envision it as a flexible space that can be reduced in size, sections that can be reduced in size for studio classes, for our black box productions that we'd like to do. And then, and it'll also have an elevator to give full accessibility to the building. And that will increase the amount of space we can offer for programming and to the community, and then benefit Auburn Public Theater's bottom line for sustainability. Upstairs, we've had a tenant in the corner of our building that's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful income-producing tenant. But it's an attorney, and he has agreed to relocate, should we get funding, to renovate that space into a performing space with a cafe. So, and we're basing it on a model that Ophelia's place uses called Cafe at 407, where this cafe helps to support the mission of the nonprofit, and so any profits and certainly any monies go to the nonprofit. And we believe that between those, not only will Auburn have a wonderful cafe with a coffee roaster and a whole bunch of stuff, but they will also be able to do historic programming and do different events downstairs and do events in the cafe. And I think it's going to be wonderful. We're very, very excited.
That's great.
excited.
Congratulations.
And we'll start a capital campaign after the first of the year because we do have to match it between our foundation partners and private.
Okay.
fundraising.
All right, that's beautiful.
Thanks.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our time together. So I just want to say again, thank you, Angela and Carey. And I'm so proud of you for your first podcast. Thank you for joining me today for the Loving Cup, Elevate Your Gratitude. And we'll be back next week with 2 more guests. So until then, share your gratitude and be well.